Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about solving equations. So if we have the rule, let's say 2x equals 4. Now that's a very simple rule. You might think I can actually solve that just by looking at it, by inspection. The problem with doing that is once we get to more and more complex rules, you can't do it anymore and your whole brain breaks down because you haven't built a process for what to do. So looking at that, I start with the brick method. So I look at x. It's a little brick at the bottom of the wall. And I build on top of it all the things that have happened to x. So this is quite simple. It's been multiplied by 2. Then I think about, well, how would I go about taking that brick off? I'd have to do the opposite. I'd have to divide by 2. And what that tells me now is this operation is what I need to do to get x by itself, make it the subject of this formula. So therefore, and I'm writing therefore because I've got a new thinking step, I'm dividing by 2. 2x equals 4, divided by 2, divided by 2. Now I've had to do the same thing on both sides because of this symbol here, this equal sign. If I just divide one side by 2, it's not equal anymore. So anything I do on this side of the equation, I also have to do on the other. 2 divided by 2 cancels out. So therefore, on the left-hand side, I'm left with just x equals 4 divided by 2 is 2. And that's the answer. Now you note that I've lined up all my equal signs underneath each other. That's convention. How do I know if I've got the right answer though? And what I'm doing to verify my solution is substituting it back into the original. So I'll have 2 times x, which is 2. That equals 4. That's what it's supposed to equal. Alright, I might have something like this, which is still relatively simple. I've got x minus 1 equals some value. So if I start with x as the bottom brick, I'm subtracting 1. How do I take that brick away? I do the opposite. I add 1. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I've got x take 1 equals 2. I'm adding 1 to both sides of the equation. Therefore, and I forgot it here, every new thinking step, take 1 plus 1 cancels out. I'm just left with x on the left-hand side equals 2 plus 1 is 3. So these are really simple linear equations that you can solve. Alright, so we've got a slightly more complicated equation. Two things have happened to x now, so I'm going to start with my x brick on the bottom. What was the first thing? So when I read this aloud, I read it as 2x plus 1. So the first thing I said was 2x times by 2 was the first thing that I do to x. And then I add 1. So I've got 2 bricks on top of x that I have to take away to get x on its own. So to take the first one off, opposite of plus 1, minus 1. Take the second one off, opposite of times 2 is divide 2. And then I should be left with just x. The important thing is I have to do them from top to bottom. I have to take the bricks off from top to bottom. It's like Jenga. I can't just take this one out. The whole wall would collapse. So top to bottom, I start by subtracting 1 from both sides of the equation. So therefore, I'm writing everything exactly the same. 2x plus 1 equals 3. And I'm subtracting 1 from both sides of the equation. Now, plus 1 minus 1 is 0. They cancel. I'm left with 2x equals 3 take 1 is 2. Okay, that step's done. Next, divide by 2. So I'm writing everything exactly the same again. 2x equals 2. Divide by 2. Now, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so they cancel. And I've just got x equals 2 divided by 2, we just said is 1. X equals 1. Okay, for this equation, when I read this aloud, I say x minus 3 divided by 4. So don't think BEDMAS means I've got to divide first. because this is one whole thing on the top of a fraction, there's those invisible brackets. So reading aloud really helps. So I start with x. First thing I said was minus 3, then divided by 4. I built my wall, let's take it down. Opposite of divide by 4 is multiply. And opposite of subtract 3 is plus 3. So we're going top to bottom, multiplying both sides of the equation by 4. So therefore, 4 times x minus 3 over 4 equals 1 times 4. Now when I multiply this 4 by this divide by 4, they cancel out. So I'm just left with whatever was on top of the fraction. X minus 3 equals 4. That step's done. Now I'm adding 3 to both sides. My subtract 3, add 3 cancels out. I'm just left with x on the left-hand side equals 7. Now, how can we check? Thinking back, how do I verify that that's the correct solution? I'm substituting it back in at the beginning. So let's do that. So x is 7, so 7 minus 3 divided by 4 equals, now I've got to do the top first. Yep, 7 minus 3 is 4 divided by 4, which is 1, which is what it's supposed to be.